Everybody knows the story of the smart college kids who beat Blackjack with math. What almost nobody knows is that the most successful Blackjack crew in history wasn't a group of geniuses in a classroom. It was a loose ring of professionals who took $22 million off the house across 4 countries. And then, one ordinary Tuesday, they simply vanished. No arrests, no confessions, no money recovered. Gone. Let me show you how they did it. Because this isn't a card counting story. Not really. Card counting is legal, it's slow, and it makes you maybe a % or 2 if you're brilliant and lucky and nobody backs you off. That's not enough to build $22 million. What this crew figured out was something the casinos never advertised. A crack in the game itself. And once they found it, they didn't rush. They were patient. That patience is exactly why they got away. Here's the setup. Sometime in the early 2000s, a small group of advantage players started noticing something at high-limit blackjack tables. Not everywhere, just at certain casinos, using certain brands of cards. The backs of those cards, the pretty decorative pattern printed on them, weren't perfectly symmetrical. On one long edge, the little diamonds or swirls were cut a hair differently than on the other. To you and me, invisible. To a trained eye, staring at a shoe for hours, it was a neon sign. This is edge sorting. And here's the thing most people don't understand about it. The players never touched the cards. They never marked anything. They never brought a device. All they did was read a flaw the manufacturer put there by accident, and then convince the dealer, politely, casually, to rotate certain cards 180 degrees while shuffling. Ask for a lucky superstition. Request the automatic shuffler be turned off. Little things. Reasonable things. Things the pit will grant a whale who's betting $50,000 a hand. And once the high cards were all pointing one way and the low cards the other, the player could look at the top of the shoe and know, not guess, know, whether the next card was good for them or good for the house. That flips the whole game. The house edge on blackjack is supposed to be about 0.5% in the casino's favor. These players turned it into 6-7% in their favor. That's not a coin flip anymore. That's a machine that prints money. But here's where it gets interesting. One player doing this stands out. He wins too much, too fast. The eye in the sky pulls the tape, and he gets barred. What made this crew different was structure. They ran it like a business. They had spotters, people who identified which casinos used the flawed decks. They had the actual players, the ones with the golden eyes who could read the sort. And they had the money men, the ones who fronted the bankroll and, more importantly, laundered the winnings so nobody could trace a single stack back to a single table. No one person ever held the whole picture. If one link got caught, the chain stayed hidden. Now, a detail almost nobody knows. This crew deliberately lost. On purpose. Think about that. When they sat down at a table where the edge was theirs, they didn't press every bet to the moon. They'd bet small on the hands they knew were bad, big on the hands they knew were good, and every so often, even on a good hand, they'd throw money away just to look human. Because a player who never loses is a player who gets backed off. A player who wins some, loses some, laughs, buys a drink, tips the dealer? That's just a lucky high roller having a hot night. The pit loves that guy. They comp that guy a suite. That discipline, losing on purpose to keep the tap open, is the single reason they lasted for years. And they didn't camp in one city. They toured. A junket to Macau here, a quiet week in London there, Atlantic City, the Caribbean. They'd hit a property for a few sessions, take a chunk, and leave before the math ever screamed loud enough to reach a surveillance manager's desk. By the time one casino connected the dots and started making phone calls to other casinos, the crew was already 3 countries away, playing under different names, different passports, different money. So let me ask you something. If you found a flaw the casino created, their cards, their mistake, their dealer agreeing to your requests, and you never touched a thing, never lied about a card, never cheated in any legal sense, is that stealing? Or is that just winning? Casinos will tell you it's cheating. The players will tell you the house wrote the rules and lost at its own game. I genuinely want to know where you land on that. Drop it in the comments because this one splits a room every single time. Here's the part that still gives investigators a headache. Nobody agrees on how much they actually took. The number 22 million comes from the losses casinos were willing to admit, and casinos, as a rule, do not love admitting they got beaten. Some people who've studied this think the real figure was higher, a lot higher. Because remember, half the crew's job was making the winnings disappear before anyone counted them. And then, they stopped. There was no dramatic ending, no SWAT team, No handcuffs on a casino floor. What happened was subtler. The card manufacturers quietly changed their printing. The flawed decks got pulled. Casinos started rotating whole shoes, banning superstition requests, watching for players who cared a little too much about which way the cards faced. The crack in the game got sealed, and the crew, being professionals, not addicts, did the smartest thing anyone in that world can do. They walked away while they were ahead. They colored up, cashed out, and never came back. That's the twist most people miss. The greatest blackjack crew in history didn't get caught. They retired, undefeated, with the money still in their pockets. If you want to know how casinos actually catch the ones who don't retire in time, the counters, the shuffle trackers, the whales who got greedy, we've got a full breakdown on the eye in the sky and how modern surveillance really works. It's on the channel. Go watch it after this because the technology will genuinely surprise you. And look, if stories like this, the real ones, the ones nobody puts a neat bow on, are your kind of thing, then you already know what to do. Because here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of it. The house didn't lose because the players were criminals. The house lost because it got lazy. It trusted its own cards. It trusted that no one was paying attention. And a small, patient, disciplined group of people paid very, very close attention and quietly took $22 million for the trouble. So the real question isn't how they did it. You know how now. The real question is this: was it a heist? Or was it just a smarter player beating a game the casino built badly? I know where I stand. Now tell me where you stand.